Postman Pat's thirsty day. It was another hot day in Greendale, a very hot day. In the fields, the sheep looked for any patch of shade under a tree behind a wall to gather their panting in their woolly coats. "It's a real scorcher today," said Pat to Jess as they drove along. "Whew, I'm thirsty already." The lakes were drying up. The streams was down to a trickle. At the village post office, Mrs. Goggins was outside, looking out for Pat and trying to get cool. "Morning, Pat," she called. "Isn't it hot? And we're going to be without water today." "I know," said Pat. "The lake's really low, and they're going to turn the water off this morning. Whatever will we do?" "Well, I filled the kettle and 2 pans," said Mrs. Goggins. They went into the post office. Mrs. Goggins took a bottle of lemonade out of the fridge. "But they can't turn the lemonade off." "There you are, Pat. Have a drink before you go," she said. Lovely," said Pat. "Thank you. Just what I need." "My, that's good." "That's much better. Well, I'd better be on my way. Thanks for the drink, cheerio." Pat collected his letters and parcels. There was a parcel marked "Fragile" for Granny Dryden. "Now take good care of that," said Mrs. Goggins. "It looks like something from that catalogue of hers." "I will," said Pat. "I ordered a watch from her. It might be that. Cheerio." Pat was on his way. He began his round with the village letters along winding streets, through narrow passageways, in and out of cottage gardens. He went, and everyone was pleased to see him. He met Granny Dryden out shopping and told her about the parcel. "It's in the van," he said. "I'll pop in with it later." Then he told her about the water being cut off. "Well, it's a pity that whole pump isn't working," she said. "There were plenty of dry summers in my young days, and you know, that pump never dried up, not once." "I wonder," said Pat. "I wonder if Ted Glenn could mend it. I must ask him. He can fix just about anything." Pat tried the rusty handle of the pump as he passed it, but it wouldn't move. He finished the village letters, then set out for the farms in his van. At Greendale Farm, the water was already off. Peter Fogg was winding buckets of water up from the old well to get water for the cows. Katie and Tom were helping to carry the water to the trough. "Hello," said Pat. "Still have water in the well, then? Let's have a look." He bent over to peer into the mossy depth. He could hear water splashing and dripping, but it was too dark and deep to see. He bent further, then, whoops! His hat slipped off and dropped into the well. "Oh dear," said Pat. "I'll never see that again." "I wonder if I can fish it out with the hook," said Peter. Let's try. He lowered the hook without the bucket on it and swung it about at the bottom. When he wound it up again, Pat's head was on it, dripping wet and trailing strands of waterweed. It'll be nice and cool anyway, said Peter. Thanks, said Pat. Now I mustn't drop your letters down the well. No, said Peter. Thanks, Pat. And would you mind dropping off a drum of water for George Lancaster? He hasn't got a well or a spring, so he must be desperate for water by now. Certainly, said Pat. We'll be going past his road at cheerio. Behind the hills at Intake Farm, George Lancaster had no water at all. He was very glad to see the big plastic drum of water in the back of Pat's van. Special delivery, said Pat. A parcel of water. There's no address on it, but it looks pretty dry here, so I think it must be for you. Thanks, Pat, said George. You've saved my life. We've dried out completely up here. Pat remembered to call at Ted Glenn's workshop to ask if Ted could mend the village pump. Well, I don't know, said Ted. That pump hasn't been used since I was a boy. The works may be all rusted away, but Granny Jordan's lived all her life in Greendale, and she knows a thing or two, so she could be right about that pump. Besides, my water's been off all morning, and I'm thirsty, so it's worth a try. I'll just get my tools. Leave it to me. Oh-bum-bum-bum. Oh-bum-bum-bum. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-lo-bum-bum-bum. At Thompson Grand, Dorothy Thompson was enjoying a cup of tea when Pat called with a letter. Hello, said Pat. Isn't your water off? Everyone else's is. No, we have a spring, said Mrs. Thompson. It comes out of the hillside just above the house. It's never been known to dry up. Not since Grandad was a boy, anyway. And that was a very long time ago. You are lucky, said Pat. And he told her about the village pump. I wonder how Ted's getting on. Down in the village, Ted was very busy. He was working hard on that old village pump, and a crowd had gathered to watch and cheer him on. Mrs. Goggins brought him a pot of tea to keep him going. Miss Hubbard brought him a frying pan that needed mending. The Reverend Timms promised to say a prayer for rain at evensong. Alf Thompson said there was nothing like a really good spring. But Ted just kept on working. He carefully took everything to pieces. He put oil and grease on the rusty bearings and cleaned all the rust away. He hammered a bent rod until it was ruler straight. He fitted a new washer. He cleaned 50 years of rubbish out of the pipes, old twigs and leaves, newspapers, dirty rags, but it must, yuck. At last, he put the pump together again. He tightened everything up and screwed the top on. Now then, let's see, he said. He worked the handle up and down. Nothing happened. It's gone dry, someone said. He tried again. There was a gurgle deep in the pipes, and again a spurt of rusty water gushed out, wetting everyone. Hurrah! They all cheered. Ted went on pumping. The water ran rusted golden for time. Then it came clean and clear. Pat arrived in time to see it. I knew you'd do it, he said. I just knew you would. Granny Jordan will be pleased. I'll take her some water to celebrate. Everyone queued up to fill their cans and buckets and thank Ted. Jess came for a drink and had an unexpected shower. When Pat called on Granny Dryden, he told her all about the pump, how Ted mended it, and gave her a can of water with her parcel. She was delighted. I'll have to come and see for myself, she said. She opened the parcel. It was the new digital watch that Pat had ordered from her catalogue. That's good, said Pat. I'll always be on time now. I'll bring the money tomorrow. Cheerio. Look after yourself. Pat had kept a can of water for himself, just kept a sharp eye on it all the way home. He didn't want another wetting, no matter how hot it was. Postman Pat to the rescue. The day had started cloudy in Greendale, but as Pat set out along the valley on the way to the village post office, the sun began to come out. Pat's red van went twisting and turning along the windy roads. He went through Greendale Forest, where all the birds were singing. He went round the sharp corner by Garner Hall, then put his brakes on hard. There was a big van almost blocking the road. It was Sam's mobile shop. It's going to be a tight squeeze, said Pat. He drove onto the grass at the edge of the road. Sam popped his head round the corner of his van. He waved Pat on. Come on, he shouted. You've got plenty of room. Pat wasn't so sure. He edged slowly alongside Sam's van. Left a bit, called Sam. A bit more left, left, right. Straight enough. Keep going. You're okay. Come on, that's it. Pat stopped by Sam's van and opened his window. Hello, Sam, he said. Thanks for seeing me through. Could you give Mrs. Atkinson her letters, please? Righto, Pat. And now you go. Cheerio. Sam went off with his letters for Mrs. Atkinson and her groceries. Pat tried to drive away. But the van didn't move. Oh dear, said Pat. Putting his head out of the window, he could see the wheel whizzing round and sinking down into the muddy ground. I think we're stuck. He revved the engine again, but the wheel just went deeper in. Now we're stuck. It's all that rain. It's made the ground boggy. Sam came back. Hello, Pat, still here? Yes, I am, said Pat. I'm stuck. Don't worry, said Sam. I'll give Pete Fogg a shot as I go past. He can tow you out with his tractor. Thanks, Sam. Cheerio. Pat sat on the wall to wait for Peter Fogg to come. Up on the hillside, he could see Alf and Dorothy Thompson busy with their haymaking. He could see the sheep and the lambs running and skipping in the green fields by the river. Peter came at last. Pat was glad to see him. Hello, Peter, he said. Can you tow me out, please? My van's stuck in the mud. Easy, said Peter. Sam told me you needed help. I'll just back up. Peter turned his tractor in a gateway, then backed up until it was in front of Pat's van. Then he got his tow rope out. Now then, just tie it on there, said Peter. Right-ho, said Pat, tying it to a special bracket under the front bumper bar. Peter climbed onto the tractor again and started the engine. Right, he called. Yes, all ready, said Pat. Peter drove slowly forward until the rope was tight. He put more and more power on until Pat's van began to ease out of the mud. Soon it was on the hard road again. Peter took off the rope. Pat started his engine, waved to Peter. Bye, thanks a lot. Cheerio, Pat. Pat was on his way again. When he arrived at the post office, Mrs. Doggins said, Morning, Pat. You're a bit late today. So he told her all about how he had been stuck in the mud and had to wait for Peter Fogg to come and pull him out. She showed him the Pencaster Gazette. Look, she said, there's a picture of Major Fogg's bull. It's won first prize in the county show. Isn't it a magnificent beast? Have you seen it? No, said Pat, and I don't think I want to either. There's a letter from the Major, so you might meet the bull. Better keep a sharp lookout. I'd run a mile if I saw it, said Pat. Cheerio. Pat hadn't gone far when he saw Ted Glenn waving to him to stop. Some fools left the gate open, he said, when Pat stopped. I'll bet it's those campers. The sheep have got into the clover field. It will kill them if they eat too much. Can you give me a hand to drive them out? Yes, of course I will, said Pat. I used to work on the farm when I was a lad. Have they gone far then? You can see them up there. They've spun out of it. We'd better get after them. The sheep were spread across the hillside, busily munching the clover that was so bad for them. You go that way, and I'll go this, said Ted. Right, said Pat. What a time they had, catching those naughty sheep. The sheep ran all over the place. They jumped over the walls and gates, dodged round trees and bushes, and hid in the long grass. By the time Pat and Ted had chased them back into the field and closed the gate, they were hot and out of breath. "That was warm work," said Ted. "Ma! What's that funny noise?" said Pat. "Here, it's that bull!" shouted Ted. "Run!" They ran all down the steep hill and jumped over the wall at the bottom. Ted said, "Ouch!" as he landed with a thump on the grass at the side of the road. "Oh! Hey! Wait for me!" "Oof!" "What's up, Ted?" said Pat. Ted could not stand up, and his legs seemed to be twisted. "Oh, it's my ankle," said Ted. "Oh, by gum, it does hurt. Ouch! I can't get up. I think it's broken." Now what are we going to do?" said Pat. "You can't sit here till it gets better." "I'd better go and get Dr. Gilbertson from the village. Won't be long." Pat drove away in his van to Dr. Gilbertson's house. He gave the doctor letters, then told her about Ted's broken ankle. "Oh dear, my car's in Pencaster being serviced," said Dr. Gilbertson. "Then I'll take you in my van," said Pat. "Good idea." So Dr. Gilbertson brought her bag and rode in the van. She sat in Jess's place with Jess on her knee. Ted was so glad to see the doctor. She soon bandaged his ankle up with quite a bit of oohing and ahhing from Ted. It wasn't broken, just badly sprained. "Try not to put too much weight on it now," said the doctor. Pat's walking stick came in handy to help Ted to hobble to the van. "Thanks, Pat," said Ted. "You'll have to write amongst the letters," said Pat. "Easy now." Ted climbed in the back. Jess rode back again on Dr. Gilbertson's knee. They took the doctor home. Then they took Ted home. Ted was glad to get home. "You all right now?" said Pat. "I'll manage," said Ted. "Thanks for helping. Cheerio. Bye." Pat was on his way again. He still had a lot of letters and parcels to deliver. He met Alf and Dorothy along the road on their tractor. "Hello, Alf," called Pat. "Hello, Pat," said Alf. "Thanks for getting the sheep back. It's the same thing every year. Gates left open all over the place. We'll have to have words with them campers, won't we not?" Pat went on his way. What a morning, Jess. Rounding up sheep, dodging a bull, fetching the doctor. And now we're late with all this post. I'll have to get a move on this afternoon.